Alright, it is 9:25 a.m. It is a Tuesday, September the 21st, and this is the watch list. It's going to be morning panic bounce play potentials with ISWH. I don't like how this one's a higher priced OTC. It doesn't really trade with the best volume, but it seems like it really picked up the last day, and that would be pretty nice. TGGI, this one could be a morning panic bounce play as well. I did try yesterday's move and I wasn't really the best with it, and I completely forgot about the multi-day breakout over 1 penny, and that was something I should have considered at this point here. This was officially a breakout when it had a panic and it did that move, okay, but then it actually broke, the 1 cent level. I should have been long, even though I had a long position previously in the 90s, right? And it feels like you're chasing or something, but this was clearly a move once it broke out at 1 penny, and it did consistently put up higher lows, I'd say, until it got to this 12.6 level, and that would have been pretty impressive. That was a 20% move. It did hit 13, but this is when it stopped at least putting up higher highs, at least very nice higher highs, and it did put a lower low, right here from this level. So I should have considered that, but that's alright. That's a good lesson. CEI, this one is actually back in the 160s, right where I was short yesterday. It just came back pre-market, and that's exactly why I'm not interested in these listed stocks that much. I don't want to be long or short a stock overnight that's a listed stock and have to worry about some pre-market action or something after hours. Once I'm off the computer, it does something crazy, right? So that's the case with this here with CEI. It's probably nothing that I'm really that interested in, but it is going to be hard for it to to make a move on the upside. It could obviously do something, especially if there's a lot of shorts and they're covering their positions. But it's going to have a hard time if it gets during the 180. So if it breaks out, that could be a great short squeeze, some kind of a long setup perhaps. But that's the idea right now. It could be a nice breakout if it does it, but there's nothing I'm really that interested in doing. I am totally ready for ILUS, but I am kind of scared of this one because it might have like those tsunami type panics where it just keeps breaking the low like 3 or 4 freaking times consistently after what it seems like it's trying to hold something. If that turns out to be the case, I might try to 3-ticker rule with that. It's this thing could make a really nice morning panic bounce play, but it is a bit scary because this thing could just do something very, very, very crazy. And the last one, CYBL, I just can't trade this one, but let's see how high this thing can keep going. Maybe this is the highest it can get. Maybe not. Maybe it still has a long way to go, but it's gonna top out eventually, and maybe by then, if it does one, hopefully not today, hopefully it can do a morning panic bounce play at some point, and I'm able to trade it with E-Trade, because I can't trade it on Schwab, because at whatever point Schwab decided to do their thing, because a lot of these OTCs are kind of sketchy. They don't have current filings and all that stuff. This one was not current, so now it's current. I can't trade it. That's really all I got. I want to do morning panic bounce plays and rather green moves. It is kind of sketchy to do that because they are at their highs, but I'll consider that as well. Alright, it is 9:41 a.m. and this thing wasn't necessarily a tsunami type panic, but it was kind of close. I did get a trade, and overall I'm just down like $3. I traded a $1,300 position. Not really ideal the way I traded it, but let's go over it. So my first entry, I had 2 buys, 1 sell. My first buy was 9.33, so it was this red candle right here, and it wasn't at the best price. It was 34.56, so I was going for a level 2 reversal. And at the time, this level right here in this red candle, it was really looking like it was gonna hold. because it was just showing some signs that it could be a level 2 reversal, and that clearly wasn't the case. This was like a $600 or $700 position. And then I had one more entry. It did, do this sell, and I tried to sell immediately when it broke the low of that range before it made this bottom part of the candle, when it was still right here, just a tiny red candle. But I went ahead and I tried to sell, but I wasn't able to, which is the worst case, because I mean, honestly, if it was a tsunami type panic, this thing could have went to the 20s or something like that. It could have broken 30, and that would have been super bad. But at least I'm not a complete dumbass. I'm not trading like my largest position ever. I'm not putting all my money in one position or something like that. But anyway, my second entry was actually killer. It was 33.01. Was it really 33.01? Yeah. Which candle? 934. This was a super killer entry. This was my other, no, not even 33.1, 33.01. I literally almost bottom ticked the freaking thing. My entry was right here. That was a super killer entry now looking at it. Unfortunately, this one kind of got with me, and because of the fact that I have a position at a higher level and it is trying to bounce, it did get to VWAP. It got to 35, but it was looking pretty scary, especially when it had this wick down here in 935, and I sold at the beginning of 935. I didn't sell down here, but I did sell at 33.71 because it opened here, right, and then it had this panic, right, and I was worried that the thing was going to potentially try to make a way down, but it did close as a green candle. This would have been the red candle to sell into, perhaps, at this 34.99 level, which would have been higher than here. Yeah, I had a 2% gain with the first position, and the second position, which was a higher price because I bought at a higher price, it just balanced out basically. Tiny 0.22% loss, but it wasn't really ideal. Ideally, I would have been able to cut the trade immediately, maybe sell in the 34.40s or the 34.30s, and then try again at this 33.01 level, which was a killer entry. That's really too bad, but it could have went a lot worse. I mean, this thing could have broken 30, and that would have been pretty bad with that first position there. And it just wasn't able to get out, and it makes sense because it's having like a panic, right? And I didn't like how, even though it was trying to rebound, what was also something that really convinced me to sell, even though it worked out here, it did touch VWAP. A lot of these, if it has like a first green candle, if it looks like it's trying to reverse, and the thing is just trading with so much volume, sometimes all of the people who are dip buying this stock, they're just getting sold into. So when they're getting sold into, it moves just a little, right? I mean, 33 to 34 pennies, but people are just constantly, if it's promoters, market makers, or just other people in general, or probably all three of that combined, are just selling their stuff right into people who are dip buying all this volume, and it barely moves, and then they bring it back down. And that's something that happens a lot. It did happen here, but it did touch VWAP first, so it's a little different from the average morning panic bounce play, just a little different, nothing too crazy. I was watching it closely to see if it could turn around here. I was ready to consider a trade. You see I still have it at 33.72, but it went out without me because I was interested also in trading a smaller size, because there was a chance that maybe it doesn't hold here and it breaks, and maybe it tries to play off of the day low, or maybe even break that. So for that reason, I did have a smaller size there. I had a 1,000 shares here, in theory, instead of 2. It did make a nice move to 36. It did break VWAP. I think now at this point I'll leave it alone. I think TGGI had this wasn't really a nice one, but it did drop a little. There's nothing I want to do with that anymore. ISWH looks like spaghetti. I can't trade CYBL, but it is It's nice I broke this range here. Yeah, this one's nice. I wonder what's the highest this thing is going to top at. You know, at least for now. So yeah, that's all I have at the moment. I'll look at ILUS, but there's really nothing I'm really that interested in trading, unless maybe inverse head and shoulders, but nothing right now. Alright, it is 10:07 a.m. I did try to place an order with TGGI and I canceled it. I don't know, I guess it was just too many people buying it and I was too late, but it had like this big sell. Look at the volume here, right? It had this just crazy drop from this 12 level to just 1 penny. 105. It didn't get the 1 penny, but it got close. And I tried an order at 10:05. I just didn't get executed, and then it started like jumping immediately crazy without me. So that was a good attempt there. I didn't get filled. That's fine. ILUS. Now I did consider just maybe 1 or 2 minutes ago just buying because it's gonna break VWAP, but you know the volume is kind of low, so maybe it can totally do something like that. Maybe all the panic sellers are out of here and now it's going to try to uptrend, and then it might even try to close like green on the day, which would be impressive. But yeah, I was no longer interested in it after this move right here and it got to its highs, because then it just got all weird, just bouncing back and forth, right? And then this time I did get above VWAP. Sure, it's putting up higher lows and stuff, but again, I have fears that this thing ends up being like a tsunami type panic stock, and maybe it won't be the case, but you know, I've seen these that just bounce back and forth and then it just whoop, it just breaks the day low and everybody's screaming to get out. So that's the idea there. Oh, and it's doing it now. The last one, FERN. I did see it here because I had an alert go off that it was trying to go for that 27 breakout, which is a high right here, and it might do it. It fell off pretty harshly. I didn't really want to consider a buy because of the fact that it was so like immediate and like just rushed to the breakout point. But I guess once it did a bottom here and it started to regain itself, you know, that now is looking a little better, but it's still kind of sketchy. It might break under it or maybe try holding 27 because it is trying a little too aggressively if you ask me. But I might consider a trade with this one. I wonder if TGGI is going to try to come back to where it was. ILUS, I'll keep watching it, but there's nothing I really like with it right now. It could break past VWAP, like where it is, and try to finish break even or green on the day, but that's where I'm at right now. Okay, it is 10:25 a.m. I don't mind being wrong here, but it's I think it could try, but you know, and it might do it. Yeah, this is looking like it's doing it, but this thing just looks like a head and shoulders if you ask me. But if it fails the head and shoulders, it could make a nice move, but I don't know, this one just seemed a bit iffy. It had this potential shoulder, head, shoulder, and I was considering a buy, like if it were to have dropped, you know, and you buy before it makes the shoulder of a head and shoulders, and it ended up being this part right here. If you don't look at all this to the right, you know, it just looks like maybe it has more room to downtrend, but it ended up bottoming here, at least for now. It's trying. I'll make an update to see what this one does. ILUS, I have nothing I want to do with this thing. Maybe if it just heads back towards the lows or something, maybe, I don't know, it might crack this low here. So if I had to guess, it might try to just hold VWAP. I could even go long, a small size, just to say I went long and kind of risk maybe the low here at 34.59 breaking and getting at 34.89, and just go for some kind of move where, you know, it has a red day, sure, but then it kind of like catches up, you know, tries to remain back at its highs and form a little wick at the bottom there. It might try something like that. TGGI looks like it's going to head down again, but that was a nice move. I tried to buy at 107. It did get as high as 11.9, so that would have been cool, but I don't mind that. I probably should have had more speed to really get in that one. If it does a head and shoulders here, it might not be that bad if it drops towards VWAP. And then I can consider it if it puts up like a higher low from the VWAP level. I don't just want to buy this thing and it keeps fading. CYBL is starting to head towards VWAP. Maybe it won't, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking about right now. ILUS could try to hold VWAP. It could very likely. The red or green move would be right here. Although this isn't really an ideal red or green move, this one would have been more like it. Perhaps, you know, it goes green here, it goes red, and then it goes back to green. I don't know. That's not really an ideal one either, but I'll keep watching. Maybe ILUS could be a kind of setup for something like that, but I'll make an update later. Alright, it is 10:34, and I think just a little after I made those thoughts after that other video, it did actually do exactly what, you know, I thought I could do. Not really in this fashion. I was expecting something gradual. This is a bit overdone, but had I have, and I was considering going long, but I felt like it was moving a bit too quickly. Of course, not knowing because, you know, it's going to make a move, but I thought it was moving too much, and I wanted to get, you know, something at 35. And yeah, I probably might have considered selling at 36 because they had a red candle here. I doubt I would have been able to hold at 38, but it's technically green on the day and it's doing the thing here, having a wick. So that's a nice move. I'm glad that was a thing there. TGGI did do another downtrend, but I don't know. This one is starting to look a bit different. Maybe this thing is just going to continue. It could try to come back and maybe get to 112 or something, but it's not really as nice as the first drop it had. That's pretty cool with ILUS. And look how it did this move with such little volume. Again, compared to this, where there were so many people just buying this thing, right? And it moved that little. It did get a little higher at 35, but this was nice. Now, in previous trades, you know, this thing drops all the way near the lows, and that's when I really get in, and I think it's a really good setup. And I think at least once I've traded a very large, at least over $1,000 position on something like that, but that's not really the case. It was just a bit higher, and I was considering just a tiny $300 position instead of like a $600 or $700 position for that reason. FERN did do that thing a little bit, shoulder head and then shoulder, although it did break a little, and then it did get a bit lower, but this would have been hard to get in. This doesn't look so bad for an entry now. I don't like how there's constantly people on the ask. Those are probably short sellers, because I don't think a lot of I don't think a lot of people are trying to sell who were previously in the stock before. So that's the idea there. I don't see anything else. I might be considering FERN, but if I do, I'd probably trade something small because it likes to be jumpy. And there is also just a lot of people who appear to be on the ask. Alright, it is 11:43 and I am in FERN. Not the best price at 270. My entry was 11:27, the time right here. So I bought in this candle 270, and the idea is that, you know, it's taking its time, it's consolidating, and maybe it can try to run for a breakout later. What was a worry and is no longer that much of a worry is the overall market, because if the overall market is doing bad, that could affect a very speculative, you know, multi-day breakout setup. And no, when I saw it here, I thought there was a really good chance that it could turn around, and it did, because I saw inverse head and shoulder, shoulder, head, shoulder. It's even trying to do a little baby second higher low, at least right now. It might not really be a second higher low here, but that's the idea. It's not looking, the only thing I would wish this thing could do is have more volume, but if the overall markets are looking a bit nicer, that could help with a speculative trade like this. So that's where I'm at, and I am risking VWAP. If it were to get under VWAP, I'd probably get out, maybe around 262. So I'm just risking $8, and I mean, what I make and lose at the end of the day really isn't going to matter in the beginning, but I think it's good to just try doing better, at least trying with more setups, more experimenting. This is definitely, I think, better than my ILUS attempted buy, even though ILUS looked nicer. I think that was on Thursday, but yeah, that's, you know, whether it does it or not, I'm going to just stick by the trade. It could be like an inverse head and shoulder, shoulder head, and if it dips a little, makes a shoulder perhaps, but you know, if the overall markets keep looking as nice as it's, you know, trying, at least now it's trying to go green on the day, and this thing still fails, at least I tried. And it isn't like a mega large position either, so yeah, that's where I'm at. If I had to guess, it might actually fail and I'll have to cut losses, but that's totally fine. Okay, it is 11:49. I'm not sure exactly. It might have been just a few minutes since that last video, but I just sold because, I mean, if this thing is just gonna float on the air, I'm gonna consider selling there. So again, I was in right back here, 11:27. I could have gotten a better entry, sure. You know, it did fade here, but I don't know, man. It just had a freaking gap like that, and you know, that was right after it doing this. I guess this was an inverse head and shoulder, shoulder, head, shoulder. A very degenerate inverse head and shoulders. It was as low as 265, and it went back to 270, and now we're at 273 by 275. And I was like, you know, if it's just gonna float in the air, like literally just float in the air, you know, I'll see if I can sell at 274 and just call it a day, and not, you know, be sitting here for hours with a tiny, you know, $200 position. But you know, this thing could definitely keep moving, and maybe I'll be kicking myself, but I have never seen this before, just that something just floats off the air like that. Maybe if I reload the chart. Nope. I've seen this with like morning panic bounce plays when the volume is very weak, but I've never seen a stock just float like that. And when it did do this drop here, somebody sold like a $26,000 position. It was like 1 million shares or something like that. It was a pretty large size. I'll make an update to see what this one does. I sold at 274. I guess I'm green on the day, like $1 something. Another one of these $1 updates, but that's pretty just freaky the way it just floated on the air. Again, I've seen that with morning panic bounce play setups that don't have much volume. It just, the bid and the ask just lifts up, but I don't know, this was just damn sketchy. So I'll make an update to see what this does, if anything I can learn from it, but that's pretty incredible. And the percent gain wasn't much, probably. It was 1.67, $269 position. I didn't get 27. I did get like 265, 2695. It was in the middle between 269 and 270, basically. So yeah, I'll probably be kicking myself, but I've never really seen that, so I don't mind selling for that reason. Alright, it is 8:18 p.m. and I finished today like a whopping maybe like $1.59 or something like that, just under $2. FERN was one trade, and then my second trade was ILUS. And let's just, I guess, briefly go over what's happened. ILUS was that morning panic bounce play, and I was back here. I had a really bad first entry, and I think the only thing I could have really learned in terms of that setup is potentially the idea that sometimes when these things bottom out, a lot of them bottom out the way it did here, and that it closes, and as it closes at that candle, it opens at that same level the next candle, and it makes an uptrend. So I kind of bought here, and let's see when my entry was with ILUS. Yeah, that was nope, it doesn't tell me here actually, but my first entry, as you can see, is 933.18, and then my ideal entry was right at the beginning of 934. So maybe the idea could have been that maybe I should have waited towards the end of the minute, because that's in theory where that candle is going to close, than to me to buy something very early into 933, so that, okay, well, by the time we get to the end of 933, it downtrended from this 34.56 level, which was up here, right about here, and then it closed at that candle at its lows, and then I had that sick entry, really good entry at 33.01. Almost got the very bottom. The very bottom would have been 33 flat. So my second entry was super nice, and look, it was very early in 934. So, you know, 933 it closed, and then 934 opened, give or take the same level. It did downtrend just a little tiny bit, but it held 33, and that could have been the idea there. Maybe that could have prevented me, you know, that could have prevented me from that first entry. That's really the only thing I can think of, is, you know, maybe if I think it's gonna bottom, you know, showing some kind of level 2 reversal, but we're like very you know, I guess, yeah, by the time it's 18 seconds, it's already, you know, a third of the way through the minute. But if it's like right at the beginning of the next, you know, candle, or maybe right at the very end, so the next candle might open and then hold that level as a level 2 reversal is actually working, maybe that can help me get a much better entry. I was close to buying this move right here, but I didn't, because a lot of them, they go right at its lows. Sometimes it breaks it, so this was a bit different, but it was a nice move there. And then I was totally right on this thing holding VWAP, and, you know, the thing trying to open, you know, green on the day, or, you know, it was green on the day here, all the way here. There's a line right here. It did do that, but it did head towards its bottom. Maybe I could have considered an inverse head and shoulders here. That was way in the afternoon. I was, by that time, I think, working on like orders for my, you know, my main thing I do for income. Obviously, it's not trading. So yeah, that could have been the potential there, inverse head and shoulders. But yeah, I was totally right about this thing here. You know, maybe in the future, if I see the same thing, I can push myself to trade it. But I wasn't expecting to move this crazy. I wouldn't have held towards 40. Again, I would have likely have sold somewhere there. And then I did try TGGI. This one actually ended up green. This is what I was kind of thinking about with ILUS. Although it still finished red, it's still at its highs. But, you know, like, it's not at its lows. They didn't break the low since the panic. It actually kind of held itself together. So yeah, TGGI did finish up. I was trying to get in this trade. I missed it. That's fine. And then I did another one that wasn't as nice. Yeah, my attempted buy was 10.05, which was back here. I tried to get in at 10.7, and it did do a nice move there, and then it did another one, and yeah, it actually closed very nicely. This is, I guess, another example of it breaking past VWAP too, and also making a move, I guess, from 11.17. I mean, it got to 11.15, so that was kind of nice. Yeah, I meant to say 11.7, not 11.17. That's dumb. CYBL, this one finished somewhat sketchy. It did do a nice uptrend. It got as high as what? 47. It does have this sketchy price action down here. That's actually not a good looking wick, but you know, it could be one of those weird stocks that just keeps uptrending, but it looks all weird. And the last trade, FERN, the second trade, super successful. I was just not able to hold long enough. I am a person who, at least with my morning panic bounce plays, at most I'm in a trade for 5 minutes, and those 5 minutes feel like 10. So I'm actually doing a good job, a lot better at least, compared to my ILUS high day breakout setup last week. This was totally better, and my trade with CEI yesterday was also super nice. They were both setups that worked very nicely, and they both, did some nice moves. I just wasn't able to capitalize on it because I didn't hold long enough. But I think holding 20 minutes is still a progress, and maybe if I had a larger size, maybe $1,000 position, I might have taken it a little more seriously and I might have held on to it. But this is something I've never really seen before. If it was like a normal price action, okay, but it just had this sketchy low volume, no volume, not low volume, it just opened at this candle, it just lifted off, and we did have these sketchy 2 million share dumps once in a while I was holding it. So yeah, this one worked out super nicely. Was I expecting it to do something this massive? No, not really. I thought 30 was impressive, and it got to 33. So this was a super profitable setup, and it's something that maybe if I were to trade a larger size, I would be more interested in holding it for hours instead of 20 minutes, and maybe put some kind of trailing stop, or I don't know, something to just be able to hold the thing a lot better and take it even more seriously with more size. But I like my progress on higher day breakouts, and I need to keep working on that. This is a setup that continued to run. It could do another day. If I were to have been long, there's no way I think I would have been in it for like a second day. I don't really like holding things overnight. Even OTCs that don't necessarily trade pre-market, at least not too often, I probably wouldn't have held it overnight. If I had a guess, if I somehow held through this might have sketched me out. I might have had a risk level there. No, it probably would have been 27 because that was a breakout level. I have no idea when what I have considered. Maybe a sell here because it was putting up a lower low. This is lower than here, and then this was like a lower high from here as well as here. I might have sold maybe somewhere here in the 28s. Again, I probably would not have gotten as high as 33. That's all I got. I think I'm making good progress with higher day breakouts. I obviously see a whole bunch of things I want to do better, or I thought I could have done better, but even though I just made a tiny amount, I did trade a decent volume size of, I guess, $1,600. Yeah, that's all I got. Just a lot of room for improvement, but I'll keep going at it.